Welcome to this video on transversals, identifying which lines are parallel, and systems of equations. Perhaps you want to download the PDF or print it off in order to follow along with this problem. Maybe you want to hit pause and see if you can work it out before we begin. But if not, let's get going. So the first thing, taking and indicating which angles that you have to work with on the picture itself. So here we have angle 1, 5, 8, there's 8, 11, 12, and 13. Now notice in this problem it doesn't say anything about knowing that lines are parallel. So when we form equations, we need to form an equation at a single vertex because then we will know something about the angles involved. In this case, we know that the measure of angle 5 is going to have to equal the measure of angle 8 because those two angles are vertical. Now we'll plug in the algebra because we will need to work this problem out in its entirety. 3y minus 2x plus 135 is equal to angle 8, which is 12x plus 5y minus 5. Please make sure you copied that down correctly. That's an easy place to make a mistake. Now since I like the x's to be positive, I'm going to move everything to the right. We will get 14x when we add the 2x to both sides. We will have a 2y when we get the y over to that side. And actually we're going to bring the number over to the left, so it won't be a 0 there. When we add the 5 to both sides, it's going to be 140. Now we can switch the sides of those equations, so I'll rewrite this as 14x plus 2y is equal to 140. And then if we want it to be easier to solve, we could go through and divide everything by 2. And that's going to get us 7x plus y equals 70. Oh wow. We have a plus y. That's going to make solving the system of equations pretty nice. So that's something that we can be excited about. Now, another equation. So we need to look for another vertex where we have two angles involved. In this case, we will know that the measure of angle 11 plus the measure of angle 12 has to be 180 degrees because they form a linear pair. Plug in the algebra, copy carefully 14x minus 3y minus 88 plus measure of angle 12, which is x minus 10y plus 12 equals 180. Combine like terms carefully. Get variables on one side and get the numbers on the other side. And then please always just take a second, reflect, and make sure that you didn't make any silly mistakes. In this problem, I think I'm good without having any silly mistakes. I can't reduce it any further. There's nothing that I can divide through by and keep whole numbers or integers there. So that's our second equation. Now what we want to do is go to our system of equations to further solve. So we will lump those two equations together. The first equation was 7x. Make sure we write neatly here. 7x plus y equals 70. And for the second equation, we have 15x minus 13y equals 256. Multiply the top equation by 13 and the bottom equation by 1. That's y's for those y's to cancel. Make sure everything in the top equation is multiplied by 13 and rewrite the equation once you do that. Please make sure that you don't make any silly mistakes, and I do like to rewrite both equations. What we should notice happen is that those y's cancel. So a positive 13 minus 13, those are going to disappear. 91x plus 15x is going to be a 106x equals whatever 910 plus 256 is. Use your calculator if you want, just to avoid making a silly mistake. And then we're going to divide both sides by the 106. Oh, look at that. X works out to be 11. So we'll put that as one of our answers. Now we need to go back and solve for y. So we'll just plug back into our blue equation. 7 times 11 plus y equals 70. Show your work. It avoids making mistakes, and I care more about your process. That's what's important. Y is negative 7. And now to determine which lines, if any, are parallel. We're going to need to plug in to find angles at each of those vertex points, and then we're going to have to analyze the picture. So please show the plug in. I know that can be a little bit annoying, but again, I'm evaluating your work along the way. 7x plus 3y plus 37, we get 93. And I really need to just pick one angle per vertex because then I can use linear pairs and vertical angles to polish it off. So here we would get 3y minus 2x plus 135. Let's try that out. Get 92. Need an angle from up top. I guess I'll go with 11. Seems kind of odd. So we'll go 14 times 11 minus 3 times the negative 7. Watch your negatives. Minus 88. And I'm getting 87 for that one. And one more. Let's go with angle 13. It's the only thing we have at that vertex. So we'll get 4 times x plus y, which is a negative 7, plus 55. And type that in, evaluate it, I'm getting 92. Now, one thing that I would encourage you to do is to just draw out a different picture of the problem where you can simply mark those numbers. That way you can stay organized. So down here I'm going to put that on the picture. In the original picture, angle 1 was up here, so that's our 93. Angle 5 was over here, that's our 92. Angle 11 was over here, so that's our 87. Let's make that a little bit more clearly written as an 87. And the other angle that we had was angle 13, which I believe, angle 13, let's scroll up there is a 92. Now personally, I would fill in the other angles at this point. So vertical angles we would know are congruent to those angles. Mark them in the picture, that could be helpful. And then we would also have linear pairs. And I think polishing off each of those angles makes it a little bit easier to analyze the question. Remember, linear pairs have to add up to be 180 degrees. Now going back to the original problem, lines 1 and 2 were these horizontal ones, so I'm going to note those. And then lines 3 and 4 were the vertical ones. I will note that as well. Okay, so everything's copied correctly. And now what we want to look at is we like to look for corresponding angles. I think those are the easier ones to analyze. So here's a pair of corresponding angles. Make sure that you do this right up similarly or exactly the same as I will here. So we know that this was the measure of angle 1. And as I scroll up over here, the other angle was the measure of angle 9. So we will specifically refer to those values as we go. We're going to say the measure of angle 1 is equal to the measure of angle 9. So, now on that, the line that forms both of those highlighted angles is line 1. The lines that would be parallel are lines 3 and 4. So line 3 is parallel to line 4, viewing line 1 as the transversal. Make sure you specify that. I want to see something almost identical to this written on your paper. But we also need to go through and explain why other lines are or are not parallel. So you have a variety of places to look. Where I'm going to look is right here, what I've highlighted in green. Which angles are those? So those appear to be angles 10 and 14 in the original picture. So I'm going to say that measure of angle 10 is not equal to the measure of angle 14. Line 4 is the transversal since it's forming each of those two angles. Lines 1 and 2 are the lines that could have been parallel but aren't. So we're going to say line 1 is not parallel to line 2. Viewing line 4 as the transversal. If you take this approach, first of all, I need to see it on a quiz or a test or an assignment. Secondly, it'll help you to avoid mistakes. So where it says which lines, if any, are parallel, make sure to answer that line 3 was parallel to line 4. Now this can be a very involved problem, but show your work one step at a time. Stay organized, and everything should work out well for you.